Tony, we better really rise to the occasion here. Man, the pressure, Steve. It's a good thing to know the name of your co-presenter. It's kind of like calling this a conference. I've really gotten in trouble for that, so. Well, welcome everybody. This feels so different than being in front of the big group. It feels like we're sitting around the campfire, just having a conversation, which is what Steve and I would really like to do. It's just, you know, you've been soaking this in for a couple of days, and it kicks up a lot of insights, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of questions. So we'd really like to create this experience with you, not for you. And because the wisdom that's in us is the same wisdom that's in all of you. We're really, you know, years ago, I went to hear Carl Rogers, the psychotherapist, the client-centered therapy guy. And he was in front of this huge audience, and when he sat down, he was kind of nervous, and he says, you know, before any time I speak to a group, I always say, I'm enough. I may not know what I'm going to say, I may not say all the right things, but I know I'm enough. And he said, and I say the same thing before I see a client. I have no idea how to help that person, but I know I'm enough. So we're going to talk about what does that mean to be enough. And I'll say a few words, and Steve will say a few words, but for me, when I met Sid, like I told yesterday, I had so many concepts and techniques and beliefs about what you had to do to really help people. So I had a whole encyclopedia Britannica of concepts and techniques and ideas that were jammed in there. And when Sid said, you don't really cure anybody, it's already in there. You're just waking up what they already have. And that's the same for you. That part of you that cares about people, that part of you that has gotten you here where you are today, is the same wisdom that's going to guide you when you guide other people. And that took a lot off my mind. But I often thought, it can't be that simple. It can't be that easy. There's got to be more to it than that. And so I struggled in the beginning because I had a lot of unlearning that had to happen. But every now and then I'd let that wisdom speak. You know, just something that occurred to me from universal mind, that divine intelligence, whatever, an inkling, you know, I don't know why I'm asking this question, but, and I'd ask that question, and the person would say, God, are you reading my mind? That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. And so little by little, it's kind of like shooting at a target. You know, when you're adjusting your sights, you shoot at what you think is straight, but it's off a bit, and so you correct it. And as we go through life, we're always doing the best we can given the thinking we have in this moment. You've probably heard that said before. But when you miss the mark, it's not a failure. It's, I heard Ian saying this in the last presentation, that there are no mistakes, as my wife's poem was. There are no mistakes, only the revelation of the inner self. That this divine wisdom, this intelligence, is built into us. That's why we're enough. So no matter what life deals you, whatever life gives you, if you quiet your mind and you listen for the wisdom, and sometimes you have no time, you just do what you do, and it comes out without even thinking about it, and that's the right thing. So as you go through life, what's happened for me in the last 40-some years, 43 years since I met Sid, is, you know, I've made a hell of a lot of what you would call major blunders or what look like mistakes or failures, but they were all self-corrections. They were all pointing me in a different direction and exposing some illusionary concepts, beliefs, ideas I had about myself or about other people that allowed me to keep evolving. So we're born on this train of transformation, of evolution. And all we have to do is listen, and it's enough to just listen inside to that still small voice. And it'll happen in a crisis. It'll happen in the wee hours of the morning. It'll happen in the middle of the night. But it'll happen whenever you need it. You can trust absolutely in yourself. Not your personal ideas of who you are, but in your true essence of this divine intelligence that we call mind. It is absolutely on your side, on the job, 24/7. It's always there for you. So you know you're enough because you got all of that behind you. It's like the whole internet, everything that's on the internet. You just punch Google, you ask it a question, boing, it pops up. Isn't that cool? Well, you got a Google inside. Google me this, Google me that. You just ask, and you ask questions. You ask true questions when you're stuck with a client, with yourself, with your relationship. Just go inside and listen. And it might not come to you right then. It might come in a dream. It might come in what someone else says to you, the grocery store clerk, the guy at the gas pump, your mom, your dad, your child. You'll hear what you need to hear because you've got the question. So you can't have insight without question. And divine questions, not intellectual questions. I call them head cockers. When you get a head cocker, you go, huh? How does that work? And you sincerely want to know, and then you leave it alone. Like Derek was saying, you shove off everything else on the table, all the trying to figure it out, all of the analysis paralysis, everything that, gathering more and more information, you clean it up and you ask the question when you least expect it, is going to pop into your mind. And when you hear a true answer from the divine mind, it comes with a feeling, like Ian said in the last thing. There's a feeling of that that's it's just settles you. It's like, oh. I call it flat forehead therapy sometimes. Because my God, that's simple. Why didn't I see that? I've got a thick skull. My mother told me that. That hurt.
So this is nothing, what Joe has just said is nothing that we kind of checked in before. Shall we say this, shall we say that? And so far, he hasn't said anything of what we talked about. And I have my script here already. Also remind me, we came in towards the end of the last talk, and I was having such a good time. And then I clicked, Steve, you're on next. And I started thinking. And it put me in mind of the time when Tony and I, very first, right at the beginning, started sharing. And we were always told to share from what you know. And this is what I knew this time. But I knew if I shared from there, that was enough. But when Tony would be sitting talking, my thinking would kick in. Don't stop, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Oh, shit's going to stop in a minute. But something magical happened. The moment that he would stop talking, something woke up inside of me. Regardless of how much talking I was doing inside my thinking, something arrived that was always there. So what I found is really we are our own best teachers. What we're looking for is already there. We're already home. And what we're pointing to here is a place inside of you that's totally unique to you. Yet we meet each other there. But we come from our own place. And that's what happened to me the very first time I had my insight. I didn't want to hear the principles. I was so anti learning anything else. I'd learned so much, I was full of life, of study, everything. And no matter what Tony would say, yada, 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 would go in my head. Don't want to hear anymore. Now, I was a spiritual seeker. I was always searching for truth. And this seemed too simple. But yet that moment, despite myself on Salt Spring Island, I fell out of who I think I am. I don't know for how long, but you were there. In consciousness, we were all there. And I thought I was going to go up and ask either Chip Chipman or Elsie Spittle what just happened to me, because I've had this experience that, and remember, I wouldn't listen to the principles before. I didn't know who these guys were. I was going whale watching. There was a First Nations party behind it. That's my itinerary. But I got the first night that we went there, it was like a meet and greet. I know you laugh so hard, your cheeks hurt. And I went to bed that night, and my eyes stung. And I remembered I'd forgotten how to laugh in that way. My body missed it. Of course, I wake up the next day and I'm back in the land of Steve. Okay, midday I've said to Tony, if nothing happens by midday, I'm out of here. Says wisdom. By midday, my world flipped. And I went up to, I thought it was going to be Chip, and someone got in the way, and I says to Elsie, what I thought was, what the hell just happened? But what I found myself saying, Elsie, I've just had the most incredible experience, and I've just come home. And she just looked at me and she says, well, that's lovely, my dear.
That sounds like Elsie.
Okay. I turned around, and then there was only about 30 people. It was smaller groups that were having. And I promise you, I saw no one, but felt everyone. But each time I started walking back towards where I was sitting, and Tony says, what did you say to Elsie? I was back here. What the hell did I say to Elsie? I've just come home. But the more I was thinking, the more this feeling just seemed to wave through me. And I knew in that moment my feeling of home. And I know in your own way, you would have all had that insight, the knowledge, your soul wisdom, whatever you wish to call it, but something would have turned your world in such a way that the lightness of your being would have shone through. So even though this is called Who You Are Is Enough, you do know that already. That's why especially you're at this talk. You might think you've come here for us to convince you. So when you start looking at what has guided you here, yeah, our ego would love to think it's because of Joe and I, right?
Not me.
Oh no, I'm standing back over there again thinking about it.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're not. I don't know what to say in that. I was going to talk about love, but I'm not feeling it right now.
See, we've had our first fight. You forgive me.
This time and this time only.
Oh, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was going to happen.
No, we don't. Again, this was not on the script. I had some things, I woke up this morning, and this, you are already home, when I got on the plane to come over here, I got my phone out and I was ready to listen to the music that I had downloaded, and it decided that it would just show me the sign, still loading, still loading, still loading. So I had no music to play, so I thought, well, I'll keep my headphones in anyway and I'll just see if I fall asleep. And at some point, these words, "You are already home," was whispered to me. So all coming along in that plane, I rested in the feeling of home. Now, I can't sit here and say where I am and what I'm feeling right now is exactly the same in that moment. Because what I've found is that it does, like if you're standing looking at a river, you never see the same piece of river twice. Just the same as the ocean, you never see the same piece of ocean twice. So when we talk about wisdom, it's not looking at where did I leave it the last time, where did I hear it the last time. It's knowing that you are built by and from wisdom. The purity of thought before the contamination of any human experience. I think that's how Sid said it. That's you. The purity of thought. Without the thinker. That is you. You are home. You are wisdom in action. The peace that you are looking for lives there too. And with that love and understanding, nothing will change. Now, in my last talk, I found myself saying it's not an understanding that I have to learn something. You already know who you are. We all simply forget time at times. But that's the greatest news. You already know who you are. At our window, we have a lead crystal thing, and the sun catches it, and it shines little colors of rainbows all over. And I kind of liken that this crystal is God, mind, whatever you want to call it. And we're here on earth, we're all shining all over. We're still attached to the crystal. We never leave home. And we're just shining out and having our own experience. And that sun will always shine, because that's the nature of this universe. And we are that same nature. And no matter what we think, no matter what we've been through, no matter what we've done, no matter what we may be doing, we're always home. That for me was a saving grace. Because I used to live in a land where no one was out to get me more than I was out to get myself. And I didn't know that because that was a comfort zone. But then when I saw, no, that's just who you think who you are, Steve. I still at that point wouldn't have said who you are is enough. I still felt there was a little bit more I needed to learn. But I then got to see it's the unlearning of who I thought I had to be. That's where the nuggets of wisdom was. So I can be whoever I choose to be. The good, the bad, the ugly. And I don't know until I know. And that's one of the things that Joe, when I was listening to him talk yesterday, he talked about knowing, and it kind of something inside me nudged. Now I don't know what it meant, and I'm not going looking for it. And then when we were talking, I listened to Sid this morning, and he talked about knowing as being different levels of consciousness. But, oh, right, I hope I remember that. But I'm not feeling it the way that I did when I heard it this morning. Then when Joe and I had our check-in, he mentioned knowing again. So I know consciousness wants me to play with knowing. I don't know what it means right now, so I can't share it with you. But it reminded me of like when Sid says, you know, if you want $20 and I only have 10, I can only give you my 10. But if you're stuck and you want 20, that's where you are. So I'm giving you my $10, Phil, right now. Because that's all I can give you in this moment.
You are Scottish, right?
I know, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll give you 5.
Well, I'd love to, you know, just looking at you guys, my God, I don't think I've ever had a group that is higher than this group. I don't know what kind of drugs they're using. I know we're in southern Spain, there's a lot of weird things happening, but what a great, the smiles, the energy is just unbelievable. This is my first, I'm a virgin to Viva. My first time, and man, this is the way it should be done. This is so beautiful here. But anyway, you have wisdom in you, and maybe in the form of a question, or you have a story you want to tell. So let's just kind of play with this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just play with it. And don't be shy. Whatever you feel like. Oh, that was a stupid question. Well, if it's coming from your true self, it's not stupid. So just trust it.
No, it's probably not coming from my true self. It's probably coming from here, but who cares, right? Right? Mind. So many minds, so little time. Okay, so
So many minds. No, that's a poster. You've already given us a gift.
so I don't know what you mean when you say I've come home or I am home or home sweet home, whatever. Like the only other one I've heard say that. What? Oh. Okay, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you mean when you say I'm home. I've come home. The only one I've heard say that is Sid. I don't know what it means to come home, and also, how do you unlearn? Like amnesia? I mean, I don't know how to do that. So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
You want to
You go.
how do you know that you know? That's the question. How do you know when you know?
No. How do you know? What does it mean to be home? I don't understand that. What the
What does
hell
it
is he
mean to be
talking
home?
about? And then how do
Just
you?
one at a time. I've got a short memory. It's
Okay.
good, but it's short. So, what does that mean? Well, for me,
Are you home?
I just said I feel at home. So,
All right, you're
when
home.
you feel like when you're with really good friends, or you have a special place in the park that you like to sit, and in that time you completely relax. You get that's home. It could be when you're doing something you really love doing. Like for me, I love to downhill ski. So when I'm on the slopes and I'm just in that zone, I'm home. So when you're doing what you are inspired to do from mind, whatever it is, whether it's skiing, sitting in the park bench, giving a talk, spending time with your child, spending time alone, anytime you listen and you are directed from within in that perfect guidance system, and you trust it and you follow it, then you feel like, oh, this is right. That was the right decision. I'm at home. I feel at home here. Like I feel really at home here with you guys right now. Steve, I'm at the right place, the right time. So home isn't a house. I don't have one right now anyway, so that's another whole story. So home has to be where your heart is. Remember The Wizard of Oz?
Mm-hmm.
And Dorothy runs away from home. right? And she goes, and all of a sudden the storm comes up, and she sees the wizard, and he goes in and looks at the crystal ball, and she talks about how she, you know, she was upset with her aunt and uncle and whatever, and she's run away, and and he says, well, home is where the heart is, something like that. And but you need to find it. So she goes off, follows the yellow brick road, and goes off to look for the wizard. You've got to talk to the wizard. And when she finally gets to the wizard, he says, well, in order to go home, you have to satisfy these 3 things. You have to get the broom of the Wicked Witch of the West. And so they go off on all of their adventures. And at the very end, you know, remember at the very end, the wizard's getting up on the balloon, and they're getting ready to cut the ties, and the lion gets his courage, the Tin Man gets his heart, and what about me? I want to go home. I want to go home. And all of a sudden the balloon's going off, and she's just like totally disheartened. Oh my God, everybody else got what they wanted, and I didn't get what I wanted. Then the good witch appears, Glinda, and looks at Dorothy, who's got the red slippers on. Magical red slippers. We all have a pair. Some of us are in the closet about it, but... but she says, Dorothy, just say, there's no place like home, and click your heel 3 times. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And she goes off. And then she realizes that home, she was never really lost in the first place, that home was in here. And that's where home is. Home is where the heart is. Home is where your wisdom is. Home is where your love is. When you find that, you're at home anywhere. I've traveled all over this planet, done things I never in the million years, this is way, way above my pay grade. I'll never forget being in front of all the department chairs at Mayo Clinic, and Keith and I had to do a 4-day retreat with them and their wives, and none of them wanted to be there. But the CEO, wanted them to learn the principles, because he knew they were burned out, and if they found home, if they found their resilience, if they found their peace of mind, they would not only be a really excellently trained surgeon or geneticist or whatever their research role was, but they would do it better because they would be doing it from mental clarity. They'd be doing it from insight. They'd be doing it from wisdom. So anyway, so we're there and we're talking away for a while. This surgeon stands up and he says, "This is a bunch of bullshit." Well, this is going well. And he was, I just got back from Iraq and I'm a surgeon and you've got to control your nurses and you've got to tell them what to do. What's this crap about just having a good feeling? And I looked at Keith and I said, I think we should take a break. Let's take a break now. Because I was not home. I was like totally lost it. I was like really insecure, and I thought, oh man, we just got this incredible opportunity. I am completely blowing it. What are we going to do? So we take a break. We're out there, and I said, God, I don't know what to do. And Keith says, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I don't know what to do either, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to Tony. And I have no idea what I'm going to say to him. And to this day, I don't remember what I said to Tony. Not that Tony. So the Tony. And but I walked up to him and I just walked up and whatever I said to him, he was just, and everybody in the room said, shut the F up, Tony. We want to hear the man. So that was the perfect thing that created the unity of the whole group and their openness. He never heard anything, but he was the plant, I swear to God, from the divine wisdom that made that happen. So I've seen that happen over and over again in impossible situations of teaching police officers, firefighters. Yeah, I've kind of been thrown in the den with people. I'm, oh God, I know the principles work everywhere, but this has got to be an exception. I've always had that doubt. But deep inside, I know if I trust my wisdom in the moment, and I just put my heart out to them because I know they're suffering. They may not ever want to show it because that would not be macho. They want to always be confident, but I know that they all feel the same thing that we all feel as human beings. We get off, we lose our bearings, we feel insecure, and we're not happy. But when I have that in my heart, and I just want to touch that in their heart, the words always come. It feels magical, honestly. It feels mystical. The things that happen are way beyond anything Joe Bailey would ever say. Will come out of my mouth. And I go, how does this happen? How does it happen? Well, it's a mystery. It's something we can't really comprehend because it's so big. It's so, like, I love Ankush's talk this morning and how he really put it out there that we're the army. We have the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding to bring to the earth that would solve the disarray in the crisis that we're in as humanity. We've come to the limits of the understanding of the ego, and we now have to awaken to who we are. And we're the army. And I thought, wow, that really touched me because we have been on the front lines taking this message out for 40-some years, and in situations that seemed unlikely, impossible, ridiculously insane, whether it was going to prisons and rugby or I met Derek in rugby a long time ago. The work that Jacqueline and you guys have done in the prisons is just unbelievable. And you hear these stories, and it's impersonal. It's people like Derek, like Steve, like Ian, like all the wonderful helpers, psychologists, teachers, students of the principles have done. But it's not personal. It's this getting out of the way. And that's what being enough is. You know that when you get your personal ideas of who you are out of the way, this personal intelligence that is who you really are is just enough to help someone. Does that answer your question?
Very much so, really.
Great.
Like,
Good.
I've been waiting for that to drop for 4 years, so I really appreciate it.
Let's have an applause. Don't thank me, thank whatever. Yeah, really. So who else has a question or comment?
Could I just say something?
Oh, sure.
Thank you for your question, because you were right in that moment. You were ready to hear what you were ready to hear. So there's no such thing as a silly question. But it was interesting that you went from one place to the other. And what you were ready for was you. So that's the difference. But it put me in mind of, so Tony and I were the first to work with the homeless in the UK. And there was a group that we were running, and there was one guy there who we were had a little bit of what was called as a learning difficulty.
sorry, what?
A learning difficulty.
Lenin.
Learning disability.
Learning. Okay, sorry.
So in our innocence, we broke the principles down to thought 1 week, consciousness, and wouldn't go near mind, would leave mind to the 3rd week, and so on. But so we were talking and like different people asking questions, and this guy, when he turned up, and we said to him the first week, you'll be here at this time, you get any cell phones, put them off. What would you guys like from us? And they kind of just, what do you mean? Well, we say this is what we'd like, what would you like from us? And he says, well, teas and cookie. Okay, we'll make sure we're tea, coffee. So we kept our part of the bargain. And the only thing he said each first 2 weeks was, at the end of each session, anybody having those leftover cookies? And we says no, and he says good. And he took these cookies into this white plastic bag. That's my supper, that is. And off he went. So on the third session, we think, right, we'll have to speak about mind. How are we going to speak about mind? Right, we'll just see where we go. So I started talking where we lived at that time. We had this beautiful big picture window, and I looked over the South Down, which is rolling hills. And one of the days I was standing looking outside the window, and I could see that the wind was blowing up this way because the grasses were swaying, but this part wasn't. And as I followed where it was going, I could see that there was a seagull just cruising on this. And then I saw there was a dog going over the hill. And it hit me that not one thing made that picture, everything gave me that picture. And that's what we are, we're everything from that. So this is how I'm sharing it. So one of the other people says, that sounds like God shit to me. This one guy sits forward, the one we were told has the learning disability, and says, each time I listen to you guys, I just think there's goodness inside of me. And there's goodness in you, and you, and you, and you, and you. And if we just look at the goodness inside of us all, wouldn't we be in a better place than sat back? Tony and I closed our mouths and felt like we wanted to say, will you come and sit here? In that moment, home was his goodness. Goodness was his home. So for me, it is a simple feeling where no personal thinking is dictating. You just feel that simple. And or it might be you're just all of a sudden something comes to mind, or a simple whisper. But I love home is where the heart is. Because it's that moment where we get, sometimes this doesn't feel right, but we just know to trust. But the beautiful thing about that is we get to navigate and feel and sense and understand ourselves. And that's what really hit me when I was doing my talk last night as well, that these 3 beautiful spiritual gifts that Sydney Banks uncovered are for you and you only. To understand how this mystical nature of life is making you up in the moment, and how you are working with it to understand. But the beautiful thing about that moment is that when you are touched, you cannot help but share it. And I don't mean try and preach or convince, but you just share it. Because home is where the heart is, and the heart is open to share. And then when you find that you're in the driver's seat of your experience, so you get to see firsthand. When I started listening at the beginning to people talking about the principles, I very quickly noticed that lots of people were smiling and laughing and I wasn't. Why is that? Because I was bringing my psychology training to it. Everything had to make sense, it had to have a purpose. But the one thing it really began to click me was Jack Pransky was doing a talk, and there was a woman in the audience called Amy. And Amy asked could she do, or actually Jack asked her to come and do a talk. And there was, she was talking about, in America, she was a kindergarten teacher, and she wanted to roll the principles out to every kindergarten in the US. And she says, I have this little video that I want to show. It's really bad quality because we want to get funding, but if I can play it. So of course we wanted to see this video. She says, there's a little boy, and I can't remember his name, so I'll just call him Jack. And he has 5 different mental health diagnoses. So when we start this, you will hear crash, bang, wallow, and it will be Jack playing with the toys, and we just let him until he's in a place where he settles down and he comes and he joins the group. But you'll get a sense of what we're telling the kids as we go along. So yeah, she presses go, crash, bang, wallow. But at some point, the door opens and this little boy comes in. And his mum says, this is where you're going to play for a couple of hours. This is your new friends. So he starts crying. The crash bang wallop stops. And this little Jack goes over and says, "Hi, I'm Jack. What's your name?" The little boy tells his name and starts crying. So Jack goes and gets this plastic bottle, you know, like the ones over there filled with water. But there's rice in this, and it's filled up halfway. And he picks up this bottle and he says to the little boy, "Look, this is all you're doing right now." And he shakes it up. He says, "Watch the rice, watch the rice." He says, "Look, it's settling. You're just scared. You're just scared that you're going to miss your mum. But you can come and play with me. It's settling. Do you want to come and sit with me? Okay then." Hand in hand, those two little boys. That floored me. Because I could not bring any thinking to that wisdom that was happening in that moment. There was no mental health diagnosis in that little Jack in that moment. That's the purity of what we're pointing to. And that was the little thing that started, where my light came through and I started knowing that that's somewhere that I want to look. And then I saw it somewhere I'm actually looking from. We're all looking from the inside out, not the outside in. Home is inside. The heart is inside. But we've lived out here. And we still will live out here. Because the beautiful thing about the principles is the form and the formless is one. But in reality, we live more in better feelings than we don't. But it's just because we give more attention to the non-good feelings. They feel a bit more intense, so our body locks into it. So I remember hearing in Chinese medicine, so a lot, obviously the weather's changing, the seasons are changing in the UK, and a lot of my friends are actually saying, "Well, I feel like I have a chill." And I remember working in a clinic years ago, and there was a Chinese medicine doctor there, and she was saying, "Oh, it's coming up to the year where I'm having people having wind chill." And I said, "Well, what does wind chill mean?" And she says, "Well, you know, you've been so relaxed in the summer and the body's really feeling good about itself. And then it starts where the sun's still shining, but the wind started changing and it's a little bit cooler. So when we feel it, the body locks a little bit and it holds that coolness in there. And once that happens a few times, that's how the body starts developing flus and colds. So it's still important that you wrap yourself up." So when I was saying it to my friends this year, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is us really. We have outside influences that we think, and it locks us into the experience. But we have the warmth of this understanding that will help us through any experience. And sometimes we get it straight away. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. But who you are is always enough to get you through every experience. It's the self-judgment or influences and we can go on, and that's a whole other different story. But I hope what we're pointing to here is we're all learning here. We're all continually self-educating. And that's an exciting place to be. To get to know who you are moment to moment, minus who you think you are. And then you get to see that you're actually someone incredible. I woke up this morning and I was thinking about this, and the first thing I heard was, "You're a miracle." And I thought about this group. Now, I didn't know who was going to be here. And then somewhere along the line, I thought, that means me too. And now, I'm going to start calling you Joe. And that was where I just for a moment saw that I was still putting people first. But it all begins with me. The only person having my experience is me. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You two. The only person having your experience is you. And somewhere along the line, we taught ourselves, we're not good enough, we're this, we're this, we're that. But let's maybe just play with the idea that you are good enough. And when you start hanging out in that direction, let's just see what happens. And you will know by what you're feeling whether you're slightly off base or not. So these principles, there's nothing to learn. Everything is the principles. I remember when I had the experience where my mum was in critical care, and we were told that the life support might go off the next day. And my brother and I went and sat by her side, and I told myself a story for years since my dad had died that I would be a wreck when my mum dies. So what happens when you tell yourself a story? You live your story. But in this moment, I was not my story. And what happened was that the machine was bleeping away, and I heard myself saying, I hate the sound of that machinery. But then it was like, but actually, that sound lets the nurses and the doctors know that she's still alive. So that's nothing to be afraid of. And then I saw that someone had a thought to create that kind of machinery. And that kind of machinery keeps people alive because they put her into a coma. So then I started seeing that everything is mind, thought, and consciousness in action. Someone had a thought to make this, my trousers, shoes, the clothes you're wearing. Everything has been made by that in different levels of consciousness. And that's more of a world that I started celebrating rather than fearing. And I got to see firsthand that if I am fearing, and Joe says, well, actually, I'll explain this, then I thought something afterwards that I will be careful how I say it. But I often say that fear is false evidence appearing real. And in Joe's talk yesterday, he said the same. So I had a chuckle, and there was a men's mental health group that Tony and I were running. And I was saying to the group, what does fear mean? And this one guy puts his hand up, and I say, yes. And he says, it means everyone and run. Imagine what the F stands for, everyone and run. And I was like, that's not what I was meaning, but thank you. So everyone has their own understanding. Everyone has their own flow of what feels right for them. And I really hope this is what all through everything that people are saying, but not just here. I love the question that was asked before, what happens when I leave here? And as part of my searching, I would go on weekend retreats, and it would get to Sunday afternoon, my consciousness would go down. I've got to go back into life now. Monday morning is going to come, and I'm going to be as low as I was when I came here on the Friday. What happened? I was as low as I was on the Friday because I told myself I was going to be as low on the Friday. But when I started coming around and started seeing me in a different light, Monday mornings were never the same. It really is moment to moment. And I don't know what Monday looks like. I don't even know what lunch looks like right now. So why would I live in Monday when all I have is here? And the delight of sitting with you lot. And I guess Joe.
Well, we'll see. So how are we doing on time? What time do we have?
1:30.
Yes, we're almost there.
We're almost there. So are there any other hanging questions? Anybody that's been sitting there, I want to ask this question. Now's your chance.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you separate the intellectualization and the feeling? How do we just like conditioned to be thinking and having reasons and logic, and how do you put all that aside?
Well, we're perfectly designed. You have to
Overthink.
know that you're designed, like that little baby that just left here.
Yeah.
You can't, just like that baby, you came into this world with no thought system. no history. But you had instinct and you had feeling, and so that's how you learn. You learn through curiosity, that's a feeling. Oh, I wonder about this. Or, and you might be pre-verbal, and you don't know how to talk, but you want something. You, or whatever, you do something and you get a response and you get what you want. So as you go through life, this divine intelligence gives you a language, maybe 2 or 3. This divine intelligence, you learn how to add and subtract. You learn how to walk. You learn everything is because you want something. You're curious. That motivation is who you are. And so wherever you are in your life, all you have to do to find the next step is to hear the question. Hear what you're wondering about. Hear what you're curious about. And it will always take you to the right person, the right book, the right dream that night to give you the answer. Somehow it's going to show up in your life that you will get the answers that you seek. Because the answers come from within. It's from the hearing rather than what's being said. So Sid would often say, you can hear wisdom out of from anywhere. The grocery store clerk, that was the common example he used, or the person on the street, or the homeless person. If your mind is open, you will hear just enough that you need for that day. And when you leave here, when you leave this conference, when you hear something about the principles, what it gives you is faith. Faith that you have whatever you need within you. Life will provide you with that. You just have to open your heart, open your mind, and listen. Just open your heart, open your mind, and listen. Don't believe everything you think, because a lot of what you think is just not true. But you've got this great sorter in you, the sorting hat of Harwood. What's in Harry Potter? What is it? Yeah, Horowitz. So we've got a sorter in there, and that's called wisdom, that lets us know the questions to ask: what's true, what's not true. So I think our time is up. Is that right? Thank you guys so much for listening.